Welcome to another episode of Seeing Them Live, a podcast featuring memorable concert stories from live music fans. Everyone has a concert story, and hopefully, one day, we'll hear yours. And now, we'll hear Steve's.
It's funny because that's happened to me almost every time I've seen Danzig. So it always just seems, again, I'm a tall black man at Danzig. And just, I don't know why. People always come up and ask me, hey, you want to go fight some skinheads? Wait, are you asking me, are me and you fighting because you look like a skinhead? Or are you asking me to help you fight skinheads?
Steve Pothel is an accountant and enjoys seeing live music. He's featured prominently in my book, Stub Stories, a memoir of live music, in the chapter called The Tender Trap. Steve, welcome to Seeing Them Live.
Oh, thanks for having me, my friend.
We're also joined by my co-host and producer, Doug Florzak.
Steve.
Doug, nice to meet you.
We appreciate you coming on, Steve. When I was proofing, every time I proofed that book like a million times. And every time I came to the chapter in your stories, I would just laugh out loud because they're entertaining. But I thought we would start with like your first concert, which I think you had mentioned was was U2, the Zoo TV show in 1992. But I think you were looking into that because you weren't quite sure if that was actually the first one.
So Chuck, get my nerdiness on to prepare for this. I was so absolutely wrong on this. Now, don't get me wrong. 92 was my first year of the concerts. That was my first year. However, the Zoo TV tour was my last concert of that year. So surprisingly, as I went through all my stubs that I still managed to have back in the days when, you used to slip stubs in your CD cases. I kept all those, even though the wife made me get rid of all the CDs. So it turns out that year, my first concert was The Cure, then Lollapalooza, then Zoo TV later that year.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, still got great stories for all of them.
So The Cure, what tour was that, Steve?
So that was Wish.
Wish, okay.
So what was I? I was 19, start of the Wayward years. I just finished a year at Iowa State. Wish was hot because that was the first album they had done in a while. I think it was the first album after Disintegration. So again, it was big, like they do. It was big news, big tour selling out. I remember I couldn't even get tickets in Chicago for them. But being an Iowa kid, I called the Iowa Ticketmaster at the time. And they're like, yeah, we have plenty. We can get you into Chicago. So on and so forth. Bought tickets, went to see them at the World. Is it even still called the World now, my friend? I don't even know.
No, it's called like the, oh my God, what's it called? Like the, I don't know, Midwest Bank Amphitheater. I don't know. It's some bank. We'll figure it out. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, well, actually, there's an article. You're talking about Tinley Park, right?
Correct.
If you go to our website and you go to the episode artifacts for our very first episode, which was with Tom Fitzer, there's an entire article called All the Names the Tinley Park Amphitheater Has Been Called. And it's a whole article on it. It's been called the World Music Theater, New World Music Theater, Tweeter Center, First Midwest Bank Amphitheater, Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. They kind of go through the whole history of it. And there's a link there to the entire article about it.
Definitely will check that out. But for my purposes, it's always going to be the World.
Same here. Yeah, exactly. So then Steve, the U2 concert is kind of towards the end of that summer, but then so after this Cure show, which I'm sure had an impact on you, I would imagine as a huge Cure fan.
Oh, absolutely. It was my first time seeing them. Just such a stellar show. And the World was, I don't know what they've done to it. Great place to see a show. It really was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I assume it still is. I'm just saying back then. Great time. And Cure plays for hours. And, I had never been to a show. So, the first set, great, awesome. My God, I guess it's time to go. I get horse collared back. My buddy's like, hold on, no, 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 no. Second set, second set. Okay,
Hmm.
second set goes. Oh my god! I think another hour they're going and going. Wow, that was great. Okay, let's definitely go. He's like, yeah, they can't be doing a third. Get to the parking lot. They open up with the figurehead, which is really literally one of my favorite songs from them. That opening drum beat. And I'm just like, did we just missed a figurehead? Yep. It is 11:30 at night. I get it. I didn't think they were going either, but just yeah.
Wow. Yeah, they put on an incredible show. I just saw them recently last summer at the United Center, and it was fantastic still. I mean, they
Mhm.
were great. That same year then, I guess maybe after this Cure concert, you go to Lollapalooza, which was being held. It was still like a touring festival. It was up at Alpine Valley in East Troy, Wisconsin.
Correct.
And, I was looking at the lineup, and sometimes when you're reading these things on the internet, it's like, were all these bands really there? But you could maybe confirm or deny. They had listed the Stone Temple Pilots, House of Pain, Ice Cube, Cypress Hill, Pearl Jam, Porno for Pyros, Lush, Rage Against the Machine, Jesus and Mary Chain, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Soundgarden, Ministry, and Temple of the Dog, which I thought would be incredible to see that show because it just happened to be Pearl Jam and Soundgarden at the same show.
For the most part, that lineup is 100% correct. Again, might be my old failing memory. I don't know if Pornos was there or not.
Mm.
I mean, just at East Troy. Again, because it was still the rotating thing and people would jump in and out. But Soundgarden was there. Pearl Jam was there. Ministry was there. Cube was there. I want to, and I don't remember it, but I want to say Jesus and Mary Chain was there, and I'll lead into that in a second. I'd say 90% of that lineup you just listed was there, and it was a phenomenal time.
And you had an interesting Ice Cube story about there was a sod fight. It sounded like.
So yes, so this is perfect. So again, anyone doesn't know, Alpine is another gigantic outdoor venue in Wisconsin. I do believe it's bigger than the world. I really do. And again, that grass is all huge, huge lawn section. Reason I want to say I think it was a Jesus and Mary chain, might have been ministry, but somebody had a mosh pit going on right in the area between the seats and the lawn, a
Mhm.
huge one in the center of the lawn. And, they were tearing up sod, throwing it up, but nothing crazy. So, yeah. So, whoever it was finished, and Ice Cube came out and he had everybody going. And he's like, and he literally came out and paraphrasing, he's like, guys, this is the craziest tour I've ever been on. This is some fun stuff. You people in the mosh pit, I've never seen this in my life. Y'all are going nuts with this. However, I like to get things more hype. All that side you were throwing, I know y'all better than me. Oh my God. Everyone, everyone in the lawn went nuts. I forget what song he went into, but it was one of his bigger hits at the time and just got it going. And Chuck, it was a sea of flying dirt. I mean, I can't even describe just how much grass and dirt are constantly flying through the air. You get
Yeah.
thumped by a patch, you pick it up, you throw it. I mean, it just,
Mhm.
and we're not just talking that section. The entire lawn was decimated.
Oh
I
my
mean,
god.
and he just kept hyping it up, and it was just so much fun. But I mean, in hindsight, you had to look at it and be like, oh my God, they literally destroyed. Thank God it didn't rain because it would be nothing but mudslides and grossness.
Yeah, I can't imagine like 10,000 people throwing sod at each other, but
Oh,
that must have been quite a spectacle.
it set the mood for the day, and it was such a great, great show. Because again, I think after him was Ministry, then the Chili Peppers, then Soundgarden and Pearl Jam to finish up.
Yeah, that's an incredible lineup. That from 92, Steve, I don't know. I was gonna jump to like 96, 97. I didn't know if you wanted to uh add anything before that time, but that I'm jumping ahead to that time when I think that's around when you and I started DJing at
Oh, absolutely, my
a bar called the Tender Trap.
friend.
Um, so yeah, our friend, mutual friend Andy, who is in one of the season 1 episode called the Ticket Stub Master, he was the manager of this place, and they had an alternative night on, I don't know, Fridays or Saturdays, and there was this DJ called Icebreaker, and Andy came up to me and said, "What do you think of Icebreaker?" And I said, "Well, he's good, it's great, but like, you should just put on Q101, which was the alternative music station in Chicago, and just save yourself some money." And he asked me, "Why do you think you could do a better job?" And I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely. I know I can." And asked me to DJ. And I said, "Well, I'll do it, but only on one condition." And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, Steve would have to DJ with me because I knew your music collection. We'd always talk music up at the bar and go to shows and stuff. And so you agreed. And that's what we did. We would bring all of our music we'd probably listen to anyway and hang out at the bar where we would probably end up anyway, and uh, had free beer and got paid. I think we each got paid $35 each. So it wasn't like we didn't do it for the money.
It's a labor of love. That's what it was.
Exactly. So it was during that time, you and I and Andy and our friend Louie, we'd go to these concerts, and one of the first ones that I remember, or there's a funny story attached to it, is you and I and Louie, we go see the Cult at the House of Blues in 1999, and we're Cult fans, we're checking it out, and at some point, that's when Louie mentions, or no, sorry, you mentioned that you're thinking of going to get tickets to see L7, the band L7,
Mm-hmm.
Lounge Acts, which is a small club in Chicago that used to be owned by Jeff Tweedy's now wife and has since been torn down and closed. Well, you mentioned L7. Louis says, "Oh, my cousin is the drummer for L7." And now I've known Louis at this point for like over 20 years or something. He's never mentioned this. And I think you and I were like, "No, it's, L7. I think they're out of Los Angeles, Steve, I believe."
It is either LA or I know they're not Seattle, but they are. No, they are LA. Sorry. They are.
So we're trying to explain to him like, "No, this is a legit band." No, he's like, "No, yeah, my cousin Dimitra Plakas is the drummer for L7." And we're like, "Okay, well, I guess you're coming with us." And so he set up. We see them at this club. It was like totally sold out. The place was like a sardine can. And I remember one point I had to go to the bathroom during that show, and we were up kind of close to the stage. And I did, and I was having trouble getting back, and people weren't letting me come back. And I like reached my arm out as far as I could stretch, and I touched you on the shoulder, and you turned around. You're kind of an imposing figure, Steve. I know you're a sweet guy, but um, the crowd kind of cleared once they saw that I knew you, and they let me back up to where you were standing. But it was an insane show.
Yeah. No, that was a fun show. Couple stories off that, but we probably should not air those. But no, it was a great time there.
But then Louis had talked to his cousin on the phone, Dimitra, and arranged for us to meet them after the concert. So we ran around back of the lounge acts, and we're waiting there for a while. And we kept asking, "Are you sure like she's going to come out?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." And sure enough, she comes out with the band. And if you want to just give your impression.
I will definitely jump in. Yeah. So they came out and, it's those two, Louie and Dee, literally, oh, hey, good to see you. Didn't think you were going to band yet. I thought you were just calling and busting chops. And he's like, Like, I didn't even know your schedule. My buddies over there, and they're like, they're your fans. He's like, I know of you, but he's busted chops right back, and you and I are literally just standing there, jaws dropped about how this is going. And meanwhile, Jen's there, Susie's there. It's like they're all just hanging out there. We're like, this is L7. It's L7. These gals just rocked out for an hour and a half, and they're just first, they're short. They're tiny, tiny girls, but they are just the coolest girls who literally just played their hearts out for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Again, these girls are all over the place if you've never seen them. It is a high energy show. And they are just sitting there chatting with us, hanging out and everything. Louie and Dee are just busting chops. And then we're just sitting there, I've got my hands full of merch, and they're just like, and we're just like, oh my God, this is happening. This is awesome.
I remember they were asking, or she was asking Louis how his parents are doing and if he's going to some wedding out in California that she was going to be at, one of their relatives. And then I believe, didn't she give you a set of her drumsticks, Steve?
She did, and it's funny. So there was a opening band, I can't remember their name, and, it's kind of butts and chops, kind of heckling them, and they gave me some sticks too. And then I was yelling for her to try give me some as well. But she looked at me at the stage and she's like, "You have some, greedy," and walked off. And then when they came out, she's like, she's like, "Do you want some sticks?" I go, "Yeah, I asked you on stage." And she's like, "Oh yeah, that was you." She's like, "Oh well, here, definitely have a set now."
That's so cool. I do still have them, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, yeah. And they signed a couple things. I've got that in a plastic band in storage right here, and literally in the storage area in this room I'm in right now.
Because we used to play some L7 songs when we would DJ. That's how you turned me on to them and lots of other bands, which I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that Danzig show we went to, me, you, and Louie again at the House of Blues. It seemed like we were going to the House of Blues a lot back then.
Yeah, because it just seemed like that was a place everybody we loved was going.
Right.
As I went through all my ticket stubs, every concert I went with you guys, most of them were at the House of Blues. I mean, don't get me wrong, we did Lounge Acts. I know we've done a Metro or something, but it just seemed 85 to 90% of them just happened to be at the House of Blues, which,
Mhm.
again, such an excellent venue. What? I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I remember that crowd. Man, was that a rough crowd. I remember standing next to this guy who I mentioned in the book. He had loser tattooed on his neck, like in is really huge. And that was way before anybody had
Yeah,
tattoos on their neck or their face. It was a crazy crowd, rough crowd, crazy mosh pit,
absolute.
or whatever you want to call that, what was going on.
I've seen Danzig a bunch of times, and you wrote about something in the book. It's funny because that's happened to me almost every time I've seen Danzig. So it always just seems, again, I'm a tall black man at Danzig, and just I don't know why people always come up and ask me, "Hey, you want to go find some skinheads?" Wait, are you asking me, are me and you fighting because you look like a skinhead? Or are you asking me to help you fight skinheads? Most of the time it was the latter. And I was just like, oh, well, that's cool. But no, still, no, no. Happened with you with Louie, that happened. And then, he got beat up, not literally beat up, but he got murdered in the mosh pit. Went to go see them another time, took a gal with us, and it happened again. It's like, I think I may need to stop coming to these shows, unfortunately, because one days I'm just gonna end up getting in a fight with skinheads outside of Danzig when I just wanted to rock.
Yeah, and those guys at the House of Blues, those guys were legit skinheads.
Oh yeah.
'Cause I knew a guy who was a skinhead who I didn't believe he was. I had worked with him, and one time I met him and his friends, and so they have a particular garb they wear, coats and the American flag on the sleeve and stuff. And fortunately they went away, and we were all, I think, glad that they did that night. But yeah, so that's our Danzig story. And then just, again, Steve, you turned me on to the psychedelic furs big time, like playing deep cuts and stuff. And again, I think the House of Blues was one of the shows we went to. the first time I'd seen the Psychedelic Furs, which just happens to be my wife's favorite band. So I kind of hold you responsible or having an influence on at least our first few dates going well because I could talk knowledgeably about the Psychedelic Furs thanks to you introducing me to their music and seeing them live a few times with you.
I will gladly take credit for that, but my God, I mean, just every time I've seen and I think they may have taken my top band. I mean, just number of times I've seen them because it's just, they're always on the road and it's just easier to, Colt doesn't come around that much. But I've seen them almost a lot every tour since I started. The Cure as well, but the Furs just seem to be out and about more. So I think they may easily be my top at every show. It's just great.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, Richard Butler on stage is just a performer. If you look around, I mean, just wherever you are, with small venue, mid-sized venue, outdoor venue, I mean, everyone's doing nearly his same motion. It's Richard Butler, and it's just a great time.
Yeah, and we'll get back. I want to get back to the Psychedelic Furs in a bit, but I'd like to move on. Also, now at the House of Blues, this is 2001. We go. It might have been at the Psychedelic Furs show where Louie, our friend, once again mentions that his godfather, I believe, is part owner of the House of Blues, or was at that time, and we were going to go see Monster Magnet, this band that I had been listening to a lot. Their previous album was called Power Trip, and we were going to go see them on this the tour God Says No at the House of Blues. And Louis said, "Well, let me talk to my godfather. I think he can get us up in the foundation room, which is like a private area at the top of the House of Blues, and it's like a little balcony area. And there's also these like chilled out rooms, and there's rugs everywhere and candles, and it's a very, very cool spot." And you had brought with you your date that night that you were going to, I think, a wedding the next day, right?
Next day, yes, we were going to a wedding. Now, what was going on was, so the show we went to, hold on, I'm thinking, memory's failing. Yes, all right. So we went to the House of Blues show. The next night, that same show was moving over to the Congress or something like that.
Yes, you're right.
Yes. So we went to the House of Blues show, and I think it was supposed to be 2 nights at the Congress, but something happened, and they had to bounce one to the House of Blues, and that's how this all came down. No, other way around. The second night got bounced to the Congress. That's what it was. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, so it's Monster Magnet, Stabbing Westward, and the Cult on this show.
Yeah.
Again, just stellar show. But again, Louie. Yeah, my godfather could get us up. Okay. All right. Well, what do we got to do? Just get tickets. All right, we'll get the tickets. Louie comes through. And again, not that we were doubting Louie, but again, it's just one of those, oh yeah, by the way, that's like saying, I could get us to drive in the limo with the band. How did this happen? Okay. So again, we get our tickets and Louie's like, follow me. Follow you where, dude? There's nothing over there. All of a sudden, behind the curtains are the elevators in the foundation room. Someone's like, got tickets? Yes. Yeah. Pulling up, enjoy yourself. What's going on here? And it's literally these doors open. It's just like, you think you hear music. It's just like, I've never been up here before, and I didn't know this existed. Where did they even fit this? Am I in the TARDIS? That's one nerd reference. Am I in the TARDIS? Where did this room even come from? And why have I never been here? And why is it so awesome in here?
And when we first arrived, Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins was hanging out there having a beer and eventually kind of disappeared in one of those private rooms, which, yeah, we didn't have access to one of those, but that was fine with us.
Yeah.
We're like, we're probably never going to come up here again. And we just kind of enjoyed the moment. But after the bands played, in particular Monster Magnet, they all came up to the foundation room before the Cult were going to come out. The Cult was like headlining, I believe. And your date, I don't know, I just kind of hit it off with one of the
Bill.
the members of the band?
Phil. I say Scowling, but Phil. I forget Phil's last name, but yeah, it was just something. Oh, by the way, Lisa does say hello and she loves to write up in the book. She said send her a copy.
Okay, absolutely.
You could do that. Talk about that offline. But
Sure.
yeah. So again, yeah, so we're all just hanging out. We're doing our thing. This foundation room is literally, booze is flowing. Like you said, they've got those private rooms for the bands to do whatever they're doing. But again, they've got that third floor balcony, which just is directly center stage, and you just look right over it. And it's just awesome seating. It's top notch. But yeah, so all when a band would get done performing, that's the green room, I guess, to call it. That they'd come up there, they'd hang out. So Stabbing Westward was already in there, but they were doing something. Monster Magnet had just finished, and this is in between as they break down the set. So they had just come up and they had started boozing, and yeah, we were just hanging out. I don't even know how this happened, but all of a sudden, we're talking. You turn around, and Lisa and Phil are just. I mean, look, I know this won't no video, but I'm doing a whole thing. So they are just chatting it up like old friends. I'm like, whoa, who's that guy? And people are like, that's Phil from Monster Magnet. Oh, damn. Okay. Let her have a good time. Cool. And they did.
Yeah, they did. And we couldn't find her, right? After a certain point, right? We had lost track of her
Yeah.
and they kind of disappeared. And then we left. And then you went to the wedding the next day with her, right? We were DJing that night. So you were going to go to this wedding, go to the reception, cut out early, and be at the bar, the Tender Trap, at like 10 o'clock was when we kind of went on.
Correct.
And so I'd asked you what had happened. I guess while you guys were at the reception, after you'd eaten dinner, just before dessert, Monster Magnet had sent a limo pick her up from the wedding. Was that correct?
It's funny. He had called her up. I mean, so again, just from where we were, I had to go pick. I mean, not I had to, but I went and picked her up, and we went and did this thing. But just it was kind of just I had to get out there early just to come back and just keep the timetable going. And he had been blowing her up since like 4 in the afternoon. Like, hey, you're coming to the show. You coming to the show? She's like, and she's like, well, I'd love to, but she's like, I've got, and she laid out the itinerary. Steve's coming to me here. We got this, that. She was truly accurate. She's just like, and I'm not driving. He's carting me around, and he's like, where's this wedding? And, she's like, hey, she told him the whole thing. I mean, not in a bad way. What the hell does Phil from Monster Magnet care what wedding hall this is at? And God, where was it? Linwood or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she gave him all the info, and lo and behold, that didn't ring. She's Phil again. It's like, dude, I don't think we're gonna get up to the Congress. I just honestly don't think so. And then she picked up something. Yeah, huh? What? Really? Lo and behold,
Hmm.
Phil, he says scowlingly, sent a limo.
So you were gonna go to the show, but was it because you had a DJ you couldn't make it?
Yeah, I was just like, I can't. I go, listen, I got a thing to go. I go, listen, this is, her and I, we were super cool. It wasn't like that. We were super cool. I wasn't mad. It's just like, I couldn't argue with Phil. It's like, he's a guy in a pretty popular band at the time. I got the Tender Trap DJ can't bring anything to the table against Phil. I go have a blast. Listen, text me, call me, just be safe, enjoy.
Yeah, and you came, you told me then, and I just thought that was the craziest story. And then we started our set and ended at about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, about 3:30, and then they turned the lights up, and that was that. That was an interesting little adventure there.
It was something. It's in hindsight now, I can look and laugh at it, but I remember just coming back. You're like, wait, dude, weren't you at what's his face's wedding? Go, yeah. What happened? Well, Phil sent a limo. Who sent the limo? Phil. I was super salty, but now, as I said, we totally laugh about it. It's just hysterical.
That's a great story. I love that story. When we have guests, fill out the guest form, we ask a number of questions, and one of them is your most disappointing concerts. And you had a couple. I think they were kind of tied. One was System of a Down at the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago,
Mhm.
and the other one was the Killers on their Sam's Town tour at the Congress Theater in Chicago. So just go ahead and kind of why those were disappointing, what ways they were disappointing to you.
We'll start with System of a Down. So again, System of a Down was good. However, my experience was horrendous.
Mm,
Um, System of a Down is a very, very, very loud, exciting band. And it is from note one to note 500,000, however many they play, it is nonstop. It was also my first time going to the Aragon, aka the Brawl Room. Again, remember back that time, I was a lot bigger than I even am now. And God, I think it was well, I am 6'4". It's not like I shrank, but I think it was maybe 280 or 290. I was still in my big bouncer build back then. And I went with a bunch of other buddies. Yeah, I knew a System of a Down. I dug their stuff, but I didn't know anything about them. But it's like, yeah, let's go. That sounds like a blast. Never been to a Brawl Room, checking off things.
hmm
I don't think they had an opener. I really don't recall because we walked up, and again, if you've never been, and everyone here has been, it's just wide open space. You have room to walk as far as you humanly can till you can, you hit humans and you have to stop. We'd gotten there early, so we were up kind of close. It filled in promptly behind us, and they came on. Crowd starts cheering, and literally, I think it's a four-piece band, System of a Down. They stop, look at the crowd. It's almost like just in unison. They hit that first note, and it's on. I mean, just keep it short and sweet. I'm getting ragdoll the entire concert. And again, I am 6'4", 280, 290. I am a big man, and I am literally, I feel like a 110-pound girl. I am just getting tossed and jostled and again, it's not violent, no one's punching or anything, but it is very, very unpleasant. It is just quite possibly just, yeah, no, not fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And the entire concert, no, I couldn't get out of it from where we were. And finally, it was like, okay, this is it. I've had enough. I'm going to that bar. And you weren't even safe by the bar. It was just a little bit more chill because people were, spending money on beers, but they were still doing it. But it's just like, I can't take this anymore. I'll be over there.
Yeah.
I mean, sound wise, show wise, good time. But just my God. And again, I didn't do that for like the first hour. I was like, I got murdered for an hour. And I was like, oh God, no.
That's definitely not fun when that's happening.
Yeah. And, I hate to sound like I'm exaggerating, but it literally was just non-stop. So how it was, how it went. It happened to me.
So with the Killers, that was a different issue.
Killers were still hot. I mean, they still are. I'm not saying they ever lost anything, but, Sam's Town had just come out. It was, is that the album after whatever Bright Side was on? Hot Fuss. Thank you. I think Sam Town is the next album, or maybe it's the second one after. But again, they never lost. Their momentum was still building at that time. So again, it was huge. And, you're excited. Tickets went super fast at the time. And, it's like, all right, let's go. And you go and don't recall who opened, but I didn't have an issue there. But once the Killers came on, I don't know. Everything just sounded off to me. There's a lot of reverb. There was a lot of stuff just going on where I couldn't even hear any of the vocals or anything. It was just constant. It was like Charlie Brown's teacher had a concert. And that's how it felt to me the entire time. My girlfriend slash wife, now wife, she didn't have that issue. It was just me. And I was just like, oh,
I have to say, from the viewpoint of a musician and playing in a band, we always feel when you are playing a venue, the sound engineering is sort of like another member of the band. In other words, if you're a four-person band, they're the fifth member. And a good sound engineer can make a show, and if they're off their game, it can ruin a show. So it sounds like they were a little bit off their game in this particular case.
I can see that. I mean, Again, I'm not blaming anybody. It might have just been me, and everyone's different. It happens, but again, like my wife, she's like, "Oh my god, one of the best concerts I've ever been to." Okay, not for the kid, but I'm glad you had a good time, honey. But again, I had seen them a few times after that. Never had that issue.
Yeah, I've been to a couple shows. I remember a Dave Matthews show at the World Music Theater. We were in the lawn. We were a little far back, but when they came on, it literally sounds like the band was playing out of like a AM transistor radio. And I was like, I'm looking at the people I'm with, and they're like, "Yeah, what? This is awful." There was something going on, and it never did get corrected, and it was weird. But yeah, Doug, to your point, they needed somebody up in the lawn, and at that show at least to kind of evaluate what the heck was going on. But yeah, it wasn't good. But it happens, I guess, right? So, Steve, I thought you moved down to the Atlanta area in '05, right?
Yep, yep. Job got bought. They're like, "Hey, want to come down?" I was like, I'm 30. Sure, why not? Let's see what's going on in Atlanta. I won't be here long. He says 20 years later, still living in Atlanta.
I guess we kind of lost touch with one another. But I would say every time, similar to your experience, whenever the psychedelic furs would come to town, my wife and I would go pretty much every time. And I would always have, thoughts of our experience and where I got schooled on the psychedelic furs music with you. And so, yeah, I know recently we just exchanged some photos that we had both been to different venues, obviously, but same tour.
Them and Squeeze.
Yeah, what they were playing with Squeeze. So recently, or kind of out of COVID, that was one of the first concerts my wife and I went to. Was at the Aragon Ballroom, and we were like right up on the rail. I mean, we had great seats, and that was in July of 2022. And shortly after that, maybe a couple months, it was mentioned. I heard it on the radio that Mars Williams, who's their saxophone player, had cancer, and he had a GoFundMe page to help out with his medical bills and such. And then we saw them again at this place called the Salt Shed, which you would absolutely love in Chicago. And I think you saw them. This was in September. You saw them around that time. Same same tour. And yeah, you could tell Mars was kind of sick. He had lost a lot of weight and such. And so they had this benefit concert they were going to have for him again to raise money. It was now shortly after that show was on the 24th of September, and they had mentioned through the Metro in Chicago, that small venue that we'd been to before, on the 27th of September, that they were going to have this benefit, what is going to include Mars's band, Liquid Soul, Richard Butler, Zach Alford, Rich Good from the Psychedelic Furs, and Richard Fortis of Guns N' Roses, and a few other people just before this concert was going to happen on November 25th. On November 17th, all of those guests backed out. They said for unforeseeable or reasons or whatever. But, I went anyway. And Mars had passed away on the 20th. So just a few days later, they had this benefit concert, which was, kind of sad, obviously, but Liquid Soul, which I don't know. Have you ever listened to those guys?
I had heard of them, just being a Chicago kid. Never really got into them, just wasn't my style at the time. In hindsight, I wish I had. And again, I could start investigating them now, but just no. I never listened to them at the time. I knew of them.
Yeah, they're described as acid jazz, which I'm kind of with you. I mean, they're obviously very talented musicians and such, but I hadn't really ever gotten into them previous. So yeah, we went to the concert, and it was a nice tribute to him and such. I don't know what's become of the band, or he played saxophone for the band for many, many years. And I didn't know if you had heard anything recently about that.
Now, unfortunately, what's sad is, so I saw them, oh, as God, when was that show? October, August, or it was August, late August, maybe early September, but I want to say late August, 23 here. outdoor venue called Chastain Park. Wonderful thing. Kind of reminds, closest thing I could think of is Ravinia. For you.
Okay.
Just super cool. It's one of those places you can bring a picnic basket. They've got a setup like that, and stone amphitheater. Very cool. Um, so we saw that show, and then they didn't have much more of the tour left. And then, just kind of went about, adulting in life. And I was like, and then, being on the mailing list, they're like, oh, hey, new tour dates. And I was like, oh, cool. Let's see what's brewing. So I looked, and it was for a bunch of West Coast shows. But then right there was, Mars Williams, in Memoriam. I was like, nah, I thought he beat it. And, I read it and I was like, oh, no. Because, yeah, I mean, he was doing his thing at that show. Don't get me wrong. We had such excellent seats. It's just like, but you could see how tight. I mean, he was, having seen them for so many years. I mean, obviously we get smaller in age, but you just see how tiny he was. But he was still going, man. I mean, he didn't miss a beat, but just, from remembering, the show 10, 15 years ago to now, it's like, yeah, that man is a tinier man than he is now, than he was back then.
And he was every bit of energetic, and he was awesome live. And it's just amazing that small amount of time between seeing them at the Salt Shed and then being at his benefit memorial concert. Literally, geez, I don't even think 60 days later. Was just kind of crazy, and incredibly sad.
You saw him a little bit later because they swung up north after that, and boom. You think about it, you can't fake playing a saxophone.
No, especially at that level.
I mean, not that you can fake it in general, but just if I were a guitar player, hey, I'm having a rough day. I can pull out a chair on stage and play my guitar or something of that nature. Saxophone, you got to be standing because you need your lungs. You got to do this. And I mean, and it's not like they have sex heavy songs. Really do on some of them, Heartbreak. Sister Europe is a huge one, and he would play that constantly. It's like, dude, that is basically, I think that's what song ends in like a minute or two of sax. It's just, good God. So, I mean, but yeah, it was impressive until the end, and I'm sad, you know, that I didn't hear about it when it happened. I'm sad that I had to just find out on, just looking up on the website. He'll be missed. I only knew from the first, and I was like, I don't know how they continue without a sax. They'll find somebody, I'm sure they will, but it won't be Mars.
He was incredible in the back and forth between him and Richard Butler.
Oh, yeah.
I remember seeing them, that Aragon Ballroom show in 2022, and they were ending with India, and they were just going off. Him and Richard Butler just goofing around on stage, going back and forth. I've got video of that, and it's incredible. It really is. So that's a good memory. Steve, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything. Like, you got anything on the horizon for shows?
Kind of. Yeah. So let's see. So, because we speak of them quite often and fondly, L7's coming to town. And so I was like, oh, I just hit the 50 club. Again, I'm 29 still in my head to this day, but I just hit the 50 club. And I'm like, man, those girls are still doing it. And I'm thinking everybody's my age still. And I'm still thinking, I'm pointing, I was like, how old are these girls? And I looked it up and I'm like, they are 60 across the board, except I think Jen Finch is 57. The other three are 60 plus. I think either Susie or Denitra's the oldest is 63. And, I just saw, they just came back from Brazil and I saw some footage and they're still insane. So it's like, all right, I guess I have to go do this. So I was going to go pick up some tickets from them. Just want to talk to my wife about it just to see if she wants to go. So they're on the horizon in June. June is going to be so crazy because we are going out to Vegas to see Adele. And then, she's got that residency, and went out to London to see Adele. It's just like a thing me and the wife do now. So that's cool. And then right after that, it is Alanis and Joan Jett, who I probably should have seen eons ago. But again, we'll take Joan Jett off the bucket list. So we're going to see Joan Jett, Alanis, and somebody else at outdoor theater up not too far from here. Right now, that's the only plans. There are not a lot of bands here I'm really willing to deal with humans with anymore. I don't want to say I don't like music today. I just definitely like my music a lot more. It takes a lot for a new band to hook me in. I find myself in the, God, they're not bad, but I almost feel bad for liking them because, kids nowadays, it's different.
That's why tribute bands are so successful and so much in demand. Charles and I just recently went to see a Zeppelin tribute band, Led Zeppelin 2, and the place was packed.
Yeah, they played 2 nights at the House of Blues, sold out. But yeah, that's a good point, Doug.
And you know what? It's funny because I am friendly with a Journey tribute band down here. Not like Journey's coming out with anything new, but these guys pack out everything they do all the time. They're great guys, sound just like them. They do their thing. But, now that you think about it, it makes sense. Gonna sound like I'm throwing shit. I'm really not. A band I'm having issues with, and not issues. It's just the word I'm using. And when I say issues, it's just like, I want to say I like them, but I can't pull that trigger. Imagine Dragons. Like their music. I like the way they sound, but for some odd reason, I just can't buy it. I can't be that guy. Someone says The Cure, The Cult, anybody, Metric, like just anything I've invested in. I'm like, oh yeah, Beth, but here's your catalog. Let me tell you how to listen to this in case you're coming in late. Just boom. These guys, I'll hear a radio tune that's like, oh, that's them. That's cool. That's nice. I own like one album. My kid likes them. I'll buy that song on the radio, but I can't invest in them. And they're a good band, but I can't invest in them like I have bands of the past when music was my gig, and it still is, but you know what I'm saying? It's just weird. It's weird.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I would say force myself, but some of the new bands that are coming out just to go see them live and, yeah, try to find a band that, a new band that moves me as much as, REM did back when I used to see them in the 80s.
You said it. I don't mean to cut you off, but you said it. None of these people move me. None of them. That's what it is. Like Imagine Dragons, it's catchy, has good hooks. A couple songs I'll be like, yeah, that one, I'm good with that one. None of them move me. That's what it is. Perfect. Thank you.
So we keep going to these shows, and I'm sure some band will emerge that captured my attention, like somebody like REM or The Cure did back in the day.
Just to wrap that up, you know what it's probably going to be? It's probably going to be somebody's opener, honestly. Who was it? I was singing L7. Imagine that. A band called Two Ton Boa out of Seattle opened for them. I don't even think they're still together, but heard them and I was like, oh my God, these people are phenomenal.
Yeah, I have one of their CDs, Steve.
I think you were with me at that show.
Maybe I was there.
It was an EP, like a 4 or 5 disc EP, and they had that like 8-minute song, which I think it was at the Metro or something, and it was just stellar. And it was like, these guys are good. I went on and a bunch of their other stuff, and then I think they broke up or something happened and they got weird, and that was the end of them. But I think that is how it's going to have to happen for me. It'll probably be more opening bands than somebody I discover off the radio.
To your point, Steve, and I know they were getting more and more famous on the top of a lot of music critics' list, but Wet Leg, who opened for Harry Styles, I'd seen Harry Styles, and then because they were the opening band, I started listening more to their music. I think they're fantastic. It's Harry Styles, and he has very good opening bands, but it was my first exposure to them and their music. And I had kind of heard them on the radio here and there, but they've captured my attention, so to speak. Well, do you have anything else, Steve, that you'd like to end on or plug or talk about?
No, man, this has been a blast. No, I mean, just you and I, we've seen a lot of great concerts. And like I said, in prep for this, I got my OCD on. I got all my stubs out. I listed them in dates just to see what I was doing. And it's just like, how many times did you, Andy, Louie, who was with me at these times? You just remember how many times we went to shows and just out of the blue too. Just like, hey, my life with the Thrill Kill Cult's coming in a bit. Oh, let's go. Oh, okay. God, we did so many of those. Just a lot of fun. I think I miss that the most. We've got some very good venues down here as well, but it just stinks that I don't have and that's about the only thing I miss of being down here. I don't have the crew down here to do these things with anymore. A lot of solo shows for me, or it's just the wife, and which is fine.
I could see that going by yourself and such. Yeah, it's different than going with a bunch of friends and just the variety, like you're like, hey, you want to go see Danzig? And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Let's check it out. And we would go.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot. Yeah, we appreciate you taking time to be on the show and sharing some of your stories and reconnecting too, Steve.
Absolutely, my friend. Both of you, thanks for having me on. This has been a blast. I've never done one of these. This is fun.
That's a wrap for our show. I want to thank today's guests for sharing their concert stories with us. Make sure to check out our show notes at seeingthemlive.com for links to websites, photos, and other artifacts mentioned in the show. I also want to thank my producer, Doug Florzak. The theme music for the show was composed by Doug and is featured on his album, Flagstone. If you have a concert story you'd like to share on our podcast, please visit our website and click on Become a Guest in the main menu. Then fill out the form and click the Submit button. If you seem like a good fit for the show, we'll contact you via email. I guess it's time to head for the exits. We'll see you next time on Seeing Them Live.